A 12 on 12 series that you need to see.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
So there's some expanded journalism on the digital side on WPRI.com called 12 on 12. There's 12 months in the year, and each month there's a significant story where the outstanding television journalists in this building get a chance to kind of spread it out a little bit. You know, one of the things that is an Achilles heel for television reporters is the time that they don't have to tell stories. That's why I got out of the journalism business. You know, I need some time. I need a half hour here, 3 hours there. You know, anyway. Walt Buteau is here with his latest work, and it's important stuff. The immigration issue, interestingly enough, on a national scale, is kind of buried in the news cycle with everything that's going on, but important stuff nonetheless. What with some of the controversies we've had here, so we'll see him in just a minute. In the meantime, I bid you welcome. Thank you very much for tuning in, and of course, it's fast pace in Washington. Here's the headline that I think is hilarious. Can you imagine that Democrats are called bullies? I mean, you want to talk about a traditionally spineless group. It is the Democrats. For the Secretary of State to suggest that the Democrats are bullying diplomats into testifying is just, well, it's laugh out loud funny. At press time, which means we probably haven't caught up with real time since you see the show at 7:30 on MyRide TV and Fox Providence at midnight, but early afternoon, here's what the network had is the latest.
President Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, says he's still weighing whether to testify before House Democrats in the presidential impeachment inquiry.
I don't know if they let me use videotapes and tape recordings that I have.
A new subpoena sent to Giuliani Monday alleges he pressed the Ukrainian government to pursue two politically motivated investigations. One involves the 2016 campaign, and the other involves former Vice President Joe Biden, now a Democratic presidential frontrunner. In 2014, Biden's son Hunter joined the board of a Ukrainian natural gas company.
Who would pay him millions of dollars to go on a company that had to be reformed? They bought Joe Biden's office.
Ukraine's former top prosecutor has said there's no evidence of wrongdoing by the Bidens.
Giuliani is listed as a central figure in the whistleblower complaint publicly released late last week. Now House committees want all documents related to his dealings with Ukraine since President Trump's inauguration.
One of Giuliani's contacts mentioned in the subpoena is the mayor of Kiev. He spoke to CBS's Roxana Saberi.
So you've never spoken about the Bidens or election interference, anything about?
Never, ever.
Saberi also spoke to a former Ukrainian lawmaker and former advisor to newly elected President Vladimir Zelensky, who says Giuliani tried to set up a meeting shortly after Zelensky's election this past spring.
I'm sure that issue of Biden was forever on the table between Zelensky and Trump.
Giuliani has denied any wrongdoing. He also has named two State Department officials he says knew about his outreach.
Yeah, it's beginning to feel like Giuliani and Trump had a theory. Mostly Giuliani had a theory, sold it to Trump, and now Giuliani has been at the Ukraine trying to backfill the theory as much as he possibly can. And now too many Ukrainian officials are saying, I'm not exactly sure what he's talking about. But at least he's got a home with Sean Hannity where he can go there and just, get it off his chest and just add to the conspiracy theory. And of course, they've got a significant television audience, so it keeps the base inflamed, no doubt. On the you got to be kidding me side of all this, notwithstanding the wheels coming off the president on the Twitter side, Kamala Harris, Democratic candidate for president today, called on Twitter to cancel the president's account because of his behavior on it. Kamala, you want to be the President of the United States. One of the things that you need to recognize is that the First Amendment, no matter how you use it, for the most part, needs to be protected. Far be it for me to stand up for the President in this mess, but on this one, please. And you're a prosecutor. Holy cow. All right, let's get home real quick for just a couple of quick headlines. Governor Raimondo has responded to the Republican ethics complaint against her about IGT. See, Don Schweitzer is the former boss over at IGT, and now he acts as a consultant for IGT and a lobbyist. He's also got a premier position on the National Governors Association. And so the Republicans around here, sniffing around for trouble, have figured out that Governor Raimondo may have an ethics problem here. What they don't get is that Governor Raimondo had one company to deal with, and that was IGT, and that the Italian corporate headquarter dudes are the ones that came over and said, look, we got 3.5 years left in our contract, and we need to know about the terms of a new one so that we can prepare. What was the governor supposed to do? There will be no ethics fine for the governor. The Republicans have swung and missed on this one, although Don Schweitzer may have been wise to have stepped away from his lobby position. This is like I said, this is a swing and a miss for the Republicans. And the governor, for the most part, I think has made sense on this IGT thing. By the way, we are still wide open, and our chair is available for anybody, and I mean anybody, from Twin River to come here and tell us their side of the story. My lonely heart for the truth beats for you at Twin River. In the meantime, huh? Yeah, and what? Oh, this just in. Anita Buffoni, my standout producer. Why do you whisper? I love it. I love the informality. Hey, Chubby, guess what? They just emailed and said they're coming in next week. Yay! Be still, my beating heart. Alrighty. What else? Oh, yes, this last headline before we grab Walt. Rhode Island government spending. This is quite interesting. The Rhode Island Public Expenditure Council, which has been quite quiet lately, under the leadership of John Simmons, points out that government spending is growing at a faster pace than income for the last 8 years here in Rhode Island. Well, I could have had a V8. I can't believe that. That's incredible. So what will we do with that information? Is there a chance that our General Assembly will actually do something like say, hey, we will limit spending growth to the economic numbers re our income, like tie it. Cost of living index, earning index. There's a whole bunch of indexes out there. Do you think they'll do that? Anybody want to take a bet? Anybody? Maybe Twin River can put that on their sports bet thing, which I'm having fun with. I put $20 in the account. I've made 7 bets, and I'm only down $5, which is pretty cool. I don't think so. But hey, it's a goal, right? It's a goal. All right, the American debate. Headline here, another 12-on-12 digital original, re-immigration in this particular case. Walt Buteau and I, we don't cross paths enough.
I see you every day, but you're running it, you're
rushing
in.
Hey,
you're rushing in, you're rushing upstairs.
How are you, veteran
Very
television
good.
journalist?
Very good. Although this headline, people should be really, really angry about that.
About the cost of living.
Yeah.
Versus the cost of government.
Right.
Right?
But you're right.
There's
Knock
another
us over with
12 on
a feather. It could be. I mean, we could do 12-on-12s on that.
Hardly anything that would surprise anybody.
No, but sad.
So you want to lay some odds on whether or not the General Assembly will react with some kind of a mechanism that ties them down?
I'm not taking that.
Exactly. Give me an executive summary on your series, then we'll dig into it in the next segment.
So we tackled immigration, which is, difficult because there's so many tentacles to it, right? And you've done it. You've had Deb Gonzalez on here. I thought I was telling Anita, I thought I discovered Deb Gonzalez for some ignorant reason, and yet I see her on your show before we'd air. She's great. Yeah. Speaks her mind very well. Hodgson, I think.
So Deb Gonzalez, for those of you who know, needs to know, runs the Roger Williams, the Center
the Immigration Law Clinic.
The Immigration
She's
Law
the
Clinic
director.
was out at Roger Williams, and Sheriff Hodgson, who we've had here as well, is the Sheriff of Bristol County, Mass, and a semi-national figure with the things that he does, right?
And so we sort of started there and then wanted to give people an idea of, and I'll use Tim White's words, immigration through a prism for Southern New England. What's it look like here? Who lives where? And then some basic things. I didn't really know what the naturalization test was. I didn't know how many questions were on it. I didn't know what they got asked. I didn't know there was an English test on that particular test. And I didn't know the process at all, to be honest. And there's some other things that we found out. So we kind of wanted to look out there take a look at the left and the right, because whenever we see this topic, it's at a flashpoint, like what happened at the Wyatt, right? There's a clash, right? Or there's some sort of sharp disagreement. There's a solid left and a solid right. But I think what we discovered, if it's new, is the many, many nuances of it. And that there even is points of agreement, small points of agreement on each side.
Yeah, see, the nuances are really important because when people learn the nuances, they tend to calm down on the debate. We'll dig in when we get back. Stay with us. So here's a touch of what the 12 on 12 series looked like.
How are you?
Good.
Have a seat, please.
Marcus Bonilla came to Rhode Island from the Dominican Republic, and now as he waits to take the naturalization test to become a citizen,
To go to college. That's good news.
he works with immigrants at the Genesis Center in Providence. He also joined the National Guard and looks forward to active duty. Bonilla tells Target 12 he knows of local residents who are not here legally, but you might be surprised by their perspective.
But they feel like they haven't break any law, but you're entering illegally, so that's breaking a law, and they don't feel like they're breaking any law.
One of a few points of agreement we found in this debate. Once an immigrant crosses the border without proper documentation, we're told it is often difficult and sometimes impossible to get the necessary paperwork from the respective countries to potentially legalize their stay. Bristol County Sheriff Thomas Hodgson is a hardliner who has met with President Trump several times about strengthening immigration law. But he tells us he has compassion for some undocumented immigrants who are working, paying taxes, raising their children who were born here. It sounds like you're saying the folks who are here and following the law, there might be room to keep them here.
Well, there may be, and that's something Congress has to look at. Again, out of fairness, we have to look at whether or not we're going to marginalize the laws. We're retroactively looking back now. What we have to make clear is, going forward, that these kinds of things are not going to happen.
Bonilla tells us he understands the points made by both sides, but believes one key in the future is better informing the immigrants and the respective countries about the process to come here legally.
Building a wall, specifically, it might be an idea, but I don't think it can solve it. We think we should educate people and show them the right ways. There's a right way to enter this country.
You know, it's interesting when you talk about these nuances and that information and some of the other information in the series itself. And I had mentioned it calms people down. It's a question of whether or not they want to look at the other side's stuff.
I agree.
Because oftentimes, even on the radio side, I'll say, do you know this, or do you know that, do you know this, or do you know that? And no matter, and they're like, no. Well, no. Well, no. I think America so desperately wants a fair deal on this thing, don't you think?
Absolutely, but I don't think, and here, the word fact in this debate particularly, they can't even really, the two sides can't agree on how many are here.
They can't stipulate.
Pew is cited by one side, and then a guy like Terry Gorman, who fights the good fight for his side, he
Rhode Island is for immigration law enforcement.
Right?
Yeah.
He pegs the number at much higher, and when you ask him why, I don't know. He gets numbers from the Department of Health about how many immigrant mothers, how many children were born to immigrant mothers last year in Rhode Island. Rhode Island, one of only 2 states where it declined by 13, so it was steady. California is the other one, but he doesn't believe that number.
And we have a president who wants to, he's not been successful, but he wants to ask a question on the census, are you a citizen? Which will only, just do the common sense, only drive even citizens away from answering the question.
I agree.
To hide, who they may be hiding. And so if you want a real number, the government's got to do some extra special transparent
You're
work.
not going to get a real number, I don't think, because
it may be a
why
goal
would you
not
say?
worth attaining. I don't know.
I don't think. I think that I grew up in California, and the economy is run by undocumented immigrants. I worked with them in the restaurants I worked in. I lived in a town that had cabbage fields, and my friends and I aren't picking the cabbage, I hate to say. And then I would also argue, now I'm going to sound like I'm supporting undocumented immigrants, but I would argue this, and I've said this to people who are on one side of the debate. Do you want to pay $9 for your cabbage? I don't. I don't know what that makes me, which side or the other. I think that kid, the last kid in the story, he's 21, Marcus Bonilla, he joined the military. I didn't know you could join the military when you're not a legal immigrant. He is now going through the process. He'll probably pass the test. He wants to fight for the country.
The naturalization test is kind of an interesting thing, right? not a very high pass rate.
No, not a high. Well, no, it's a 90% pass rate of the people
who are looking to become citizens.
Yes, so 90% pass, but on
Americans.
our test, so our test 66%. Now I did
our test meaning,
well, WPRI. So when you take the test, you get 100 questions. It's a booklet with 100 questions on it. Who's the first president of the United States? How many justices on the Supreme Court? Things like that. How many members of Congress? What year was the Constitution written? You have the answer. It's a tough one.
well, written or finished?
Well, okay, so it would be finished. That's good point. But finished, I guess. Released, published.
76?
No, that's the Declaration of Independence. 1787.
You're right.
So I did look at the more nuanced question. I did look at the more nuanced questions. Well, Tim White, we were on. Steph Machado and I were on on Newsmakers, and I didn't give him one of the questions. So, and Mike Montecalvo didn't want one. So you're a man for taking one of the questions, but unsolicited, I might add. But I'll tell you this:
whether he's still here in the third segment or not is still to be determined at this point.
Of the 100, I picked the 10 of the harder ones. Yeah. Eli Sherman put the test together, and so far, at last I checked, many people had taken it, 66% pass.
Well, here's the funny part about this. I have often said that we are uninformed. Forget the history stuff, just the current civics.
Right. Yeah.
And one year, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, I was so upset about the lack of acumen on the part of even some of my listeners that I put a 10-question sheet together and went through our building over at the Salty Brine Broadcast Center, where we have some 90 employees, and gave it to about 20. Do you know how many got 6 out of 10?
No. Nobody? So nobody. That's
and
passing,
the questions
by the way.
were, what are the 3 branches of government?
That's one of the questions.
How many U.S. senators do we have?
That's on there.
How many congressmen do we have?
Yep.
What is the system that elects our president? Those kinds
yes.
of, I would call, ultra basic American questions.
Yeah.
It was a tough day.
Yeah. You know what? You learn what you want to learn, and in that situation, another part of the test that I don't think people realize, there is an English part of the test. You have to be able to write a sentence in English. You have to be able to comprehend a sentence in English, and that's done face to face. And the one woman we talked to, she said it was really nerve-wracking.
But the moral of the story on the testing is that those who want to become citizens generally work hard.
Yes, I agree.
And sometimes walk around more informed than American-born.
And very proud. A person I knew in Providence ran up to me on the street, saw me, and said, "Hey, you have to." He had become a citizen. Extremely proud. This woman that we interviewed, Miss Rodala, her English. She was still working on her English, but when I asked her what it felt like to become a citizen, it was glowing. She felt great. And I don't want to seem like I'm pushing one side or the other, because I will say, Sheriff Hodgson we had one person contact us saying, "I always thought he was far worse than you showed him."
No, he's a very calm, approachable, and he
knows the subject.
And he's a thinker.
A thoughtful guy, absolutely.
No question about it.
Yeah.
We come back. If there is a moral to the story, we'll see if there is one. Stay with us.
So it's a balancing of the positive equities versus the negative equities. And the court has the authority, the discretion, to decide whether or not that immigrant is going to be allowed to stay in the United States.
The bottom line is we don't know who's here. And I think you probably understand that for example, the 19 hijackers that hit the World Trade Center, they had 63 driver's licenses. They were in flight school. They hadn't committed any crime up until they did that, as far as we know.
I'd love to get those two together.
We did, but electronically. And Deborah Gonzalez was talking about, she's an attorney, and that once somebody is here illegally, a judge can say, you know what, what you've done here outweighs how you got here. A judge can do that. And Sheriff Hodgson, I think, is talking about what we both talked about, is that we don't know how many are here illegally, because They don't want us to know in many cases. And Marcos Bonilla pointed this out. Interesting perspective. Language differences. He says the people he talks to who are not here legally, they don't even really realize it's a crime. I know that might be hard to believe, but think about it. Maybe your relatives came here, you came here, you're working, you're paying taxes, you're not breaking the law theoretically. You don't realize you broke the law or you're not paying attention to it, sort of like the person who doesn't know how many members of Congress we have, who's lived there their whole life, right?
Yeah, they're in their own zone.
They are. And I mean, now, believe that or not, that's just from one perspective. And Marcos Bonilla, who was from the Dominican Republic, came here legally. He would sort of, I think, if I could line him up in the spectrum, he'd be slightly to the right, maybe even not so slightly to the right.
Well, I wonder what America is doing then to affect the thinking process in the key feeder countries in Central and
really good point.
In South America, right? I mean, we used to Voice of America propagandize in Europe and all throughout the Asian continent when we needed to in wartime. Why aren't we sending that kind of information on a more practical level, not as a threat, but as
here's what you have to do.
Right.
You can come here legally.
Right.
You can come here legally,
but you need to know if you come this way, it is illegal. And
then here's the thing. We think undocumented immigrant, and Sheriff Hodgson said to me, he goes, I'll tell you one point that is never brought up. The other side never calls them what they are: illegal immigrants. I get his point. They're illegally here. We in the media, I think, have settled on undocumented immigrant. I think it's all semantics, right? But this is your document. You came here. You had to flee your country because, for whatever reason, Italians, my people, WOP, it means without papers. You fled. You had to get here. You just had to be safe. And you don't have. How are you getting? What you said, if you're not communicating with Honduras or El Salvador, if there's no communication between the government, how are you getting that document that will make you legal? You're probably not, and I think that point's been made. You're right. The education of here's what you need to bring. If you run, bring this document, and then you can be here 5 years, and then you get to take the test, and you're here legally.
Ironically, we only have 30 seconds. Ironically, this story, plays with some local strife, the Central Falls Wyatt thing, but nationally, the whole thing has gone quiet. Too much turbulence down there.
It is one of those topics, though, everybody has an opinion on. Because I think it's easy to have an opinion without doing the research that you've done, I know, from your show and from everything and what I've done.
Everyone has an opinion, but it never made the top 5 of citizen concerns until the president was elected. So, in polling data. So,
I think, well, that's very telling.
Yeah. Thanks for the good work. Walt Buteau, the 12 on 12 series. You can find that whole report and more at WPRI.com. Be right back for a final word.